The heavy wooden doors swung open. A slender figure emerged under the relentless flash of cameras. The camera trembled slightly, following Ethan Brooks's every step as he exited the Kingsford County Courthouse. Reporters shouted, microphones thrust high, the crowd jostling for answers. Ethan Brooks. Do you have anything to say? How did you win the case? They said you were just a kid who didn't know anything about the law, is that true? Ethan didn't answer immediately. He paused for a moment, his eyes sweeping over the frenzied crowd. His rumpled shirt clung to his back, sweat trickling down his forehead. But his eyes were remarkably calm. He raised a hand, signaling for silence. The crowd hushed, hanging on his every word. Ethan took a deep breath, his steady voice cutting through the chaos. I came here seeking justice. And today, I found it. A fleeting smile touched his lips. Then, without another word, Ethan turned and walked away amidst the blinding flashes, leaving behind the relentless shouts of the crowd. Before we delve into this story, let us know where you're watching from. Share your city or country name in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow, we'll bring you another inspiring story, tailored just for you. Now, let's explore what brought Ethan Brooks to this very moment. In the bustling courtroom, filled with the restless whispers of the audience, their attention shifted from the stern judge on the bench to the young man standing anxiously at the defense counsel's table. The walls of the Kingsford County Courthouse bore the weight of 100 past judgments, but today, the tension in the air seemed particularly heavy. All eyes were on Ethan Brooks, 19, a slender figure, plain in his ill-fitting shirt and worn sneakers. He clutched crumpled papers in his hands, his knuckles white under the pressure. Behind the judge's bench was Judge Eleanor Stone, a name synonymous with power and sharp reprimands. Her reputation as an uncompromising judge preceded her. She was not one for pleasantries, and her courtroom was not a stage for theatrics or pleas. To her, this case seemed like a trivial matter, another young person wasting the court's time. She made no attempt to hide her disdain as she peered over her glasses at Ethan. Mr. Brooks, she began, her voice sharp, do you realize that this court does not appreciate individuals who appear unprepared? Ethan cleared his throat, a slight tremor in his voice. Your Honor, I do. A small chuckle from the gallery did not escape his ears, nor did the judge's discreet, sardonic smile. It was the look of someone who had decided the outcome before the trial had even begun. Eleanor leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. Very well. Proceed, Mr. Brooks. Let's see what you have. From the outset, it seemed like a foregone conclusion. Ethan, defending himself in a minor traffic dispute, looked as if he had wandered into the wrong room. But what everyone took for naivety was something far more remarkable, a secret that was about to unfold before their eyes. But as Ethan opened his mouth to speak, what followed left the entire room in stunned silence. Ethan took a deep breath, his fingers tightening around the edge of the papers. The weight of the room pressed down on him, hundreds of eyes, each scrutinizing, doubting, judging. Judge Stone tapped her pen on the desk, her impatience evident. Mr. Brooks, she said, raising an eyebrow, if you are not ready to proceed, I will be forced to dismiss this case. Do you understand? A ripple of suppressed laughter spread through the gallery. Ethan looked up, his voice steady despite the anxiety etched on his face. I am ready, Your Honor. Barbara sighed and gestured for him to begin. Then proceed. Ethan stepped forward, the scuffing of his worn sneakers echoing in the silent courtroom. He glanced quickly at the opposing side, a seasoned lawyer with decades of experience etched into his confident demeanor. The man gave Ethan a condescending smile, as if to say, this will be over quickly. Ethan began to recount the incident that had brought him to court, a disputed speeding ticket. But instead of fumbling through a generic defense, he laid out the events with astonishing precision, referencing timestamps, road conditions, and even the exact position of the officer when the ticket was issued. His delivery was deliberate, and though his tone remained humble, an unmistakable confidence was forming beneath his words. The judge leaned slightly forward, her pen slowing as she took notes. Ethan continued, citing a statute from the California Vehicle Code with astonishing precision. Your Honor, according to Section 40802B, the method used to determine my speed may not be admissible under the conditions stated in the law. Judge Stone's eyebrows furrowed. She hadn't expected him to cite a specific statute, let alone use it effectively. The courtroom, too, began to shift, what was initially mild amusement turning into quiet curiosity. The opposing counsel cleared his throat, interjecting, Your Honor, this is irrelevant. That statute does not apply to this case. Ethan remained unfazed. With all due respect, it does, and if I may. He stepped to the evidence table, retrieving a diagram he had drawn himself. It wasn't flashy, but it was meticulously detailed, every angle, every distance calculated. This diagram shows why the radar used could not accurately record my speed from the officer's position. Judge Stone blinked, caught between skepticism and genuine surprise. Ethan had just challenged the opposing counsel's expertise, and done so convincingly. But as Ethan turned back to face the gallery, he wasn't finished. This was just the beginning of his case. The courtroom, abuzz just moments ago, had fallen into a palpable silence. Ethan glanced around, his eyes briefly meeting the curious stares of the gallery before returning to the judge. He was finding his stride, and with each word, a quiet confidence seemed to bloom. Your Honor, he continued, his voice now firm, the foundation of this case lies in the reliability of the evidence presented. If the evidence is flawed, so is the accusation. He turned to the opposing counsel, his words respectful but sharp. May I ask if the prosecution can confirm the calibration of the radar gun used in the traffic stop? The seasoned lawyer shifted in his seat, clearly caught off guard. We do not have that documentation immediately available, Your Honor, but it is standard procedure. Ethan raised his hand slightly, not to interrupt but to ask permission to continue. Judge Stone, her curiosity now piqued, nodded. Standard procedure is not evidence, Ethan replied. The law requires verification, not assumption. Without that calibration record, the evidence cannot be considered reliable. The murmur in the gallery grew louder. People whispered to each other, no longer scoffing at the young man who had walked in looking like he didn't belong. Even Judge Stone seemed to catch her breath before addressing him again. Mr. Brooks, she said, her tone softer than before, you seem to have a more profound understanding of legal procedures than most. Where did you acquire this knowledge? Ethan hesitated for a moment, then said, I've studied law since I was 13, Your Honor. I passed the bar exam last year. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Even the opposing counsel raised an eyebrow in surprise. Judge Stone leaned forward, her expression unreadable. You're telling me you're a licensed attorney at this age? Yes, Your Honor. I've always had a passion for the law, but... Ethan paused, looking down at his papers before looking up, his voice unwavering. I also know how people see me when I walk into a room. They assume I don't belong. The judge straightened in her seat, her demeanor shifting for the first time. The skepticism in her expression gave way to something else, respect. Ethan continued, presenting more evidence and carefully dismantling the opposing counsel's arguments. He cited case law with ease, articulating legal precedents in a way that even the most doubtful spectators had to nod in agreement. He questioned the officer's report, pointing out inconsistencies in the narrative. Each point he made was met with stunned silence or murmurs of approval. But as the courtroom marveled at Ethan's brilliance, a question lingered: how far could he push this case, and the assumptions people had made about him? The tension in the room reached its peak as Ethan delivered his final argument. He stood tall, his voice unwavering, his demeanor now radiating the quiet authority of someone far beyond his years. The courtroom, once filled with snickers and skeptical glances, now hung on his every word. "Your Honor," Ethan said, his tone calm yet forceful, "this case is not just about a speeding ticket. It's about fairness, about ensuring that every individual, regardless of appearance or age, is afforded the same standard of justice." His words resonated heavily, silencing the last of the whispers in the gallery. Judge Stone leaned forward, chin resting on her hand as she studied Ethan. Her sharp demeanor had softened considerably, though her gaze remained stern. "And what, precisely, are you proposing, Mr. Brooks?" Ethan took a steadying breath. "I'm proposing that the evidence presented is not only unreliable but also violates principles of due process. Without proper calibration records, the radar's accuracy is questionable. Without a consistent report, the officer's testimony is insufficient. And without clear, compelling evidence, this case should not proceed." The opposing counsel rose abruptly, his voice laced with frustration. "Your Honor, this is preposterous. He's twisting technicalities too." Judge Stone raised a hand, silencing him. "Sit down, counsel," she said firmly, her eyes returning to Ethan. "Continue." Ethan nodded and held up his papers. "I've prepared a motion to dismiss the charges based on these deficiencies. The law isn't about technicalities. It's about truth, evidence, and justice." For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. Judge Stone reviewed the motion, flipping through its pages with furrowed brows. Finally, she set it down and looked up at Ethan. "This," she began, her voice trailing off. She adjusted her glasses and cleared her throat. "This is exceptionally well prepared. Mr. Brooks, far beyond what I've seen from most first-year attorneys." The gallery erupted in whispers again, but a sharp rap of Judge Stone's gavel silenced them. She turned to the opposing counsel, who looked visibly flustered. "Counsel, do you have any rebuttal?" The lawyer rose, but his hesitation was palpable. "No, Your Honor. The defense has presented a compelling argument." Judge Stone's gaze returned to Ethan. For a moment, her usual sternness softened. "Mr. Brooks," she said, her voice carrying an unexpected warmth, "I misjudged you when you first entered this courtroom. You have not only demonstrated a thorough understanding of the law but also reminded us all of its purpose. I hereby grant your motion to dismiss the charges." The sound of her gavel echoed through the room, followed by a moment of stunned silence. Then, a slow clap began in the gallery, growing louder as the spectators rose to their feet. Ethan looked around, his face a mix of relief and disbelief. Judge Stone also stood, her expression unreadable. "Court is adjourned," she said before stepping down from the bench. But as she passed Ethan, she paused and extended her hand. "You have a bright future ahead of you, Mr. Brooks. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Ethan shook her hand, his voice steady despite the swirl of emotions. "Thank you, Your Honor. That means a lot to me." But as Ethan left the courtroom that day, he didn't realize that this was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge and inspire far beyond those walls. As soon as Ethan stepped out of the courtroom, the buzz from inside followed him like a wave. Reporters lingering in the courthouse hallway immediately turned their attention to the young man, cameras flashing as microphones were thrust toward him. Ethan Brooks, is it true you passed the bar exam at 18? A reporter called out. Did you expect to win today? Another shouted. Ethan raised a hand for silence, his expression calm, though a slight smile betrayed his pride. I came here to defend myself, like anyone else, he said simply. I expected nothing but fairness, and that's exactly what I received. His humility only fueled the curiosity. Within hours, the courtroom clip of his closing argument went viral on social media, garnering millions of views. Comments ranged from awe at his legal prowess to outrage at the judge's initial treatment of him. Ethan's story was no longer confined to Kingsford County, it had become a national phenomenon. At home, Ethan's mother, Martha, watched the news with a mix of pride and anxiety. She had always known her son was exceptional, but she also knew how society often treated young men like him. As reporters dissected every detail of the case, Martha's phone buzzed with calls from family, friends, and even strangers offering congratulations. "Mom," Ethan said softly as he walked through the door, his tired eyes meeting hers. Martha embraced him tightly, her voice choked with emotion. "You were amazing, Ethan. I just hope they see you for who you are now." But the story didn't end there. The viral attention brought both opportunities and challenges. Law firms reached out with internship offers, while advocacy groups touted Ethan as a symbol of perseverance and breaking stereotypes. Simultaneously, skeptics questioned his abilities, dismissing his success as a lucky anomaly rather than the result of hard work and intelligence. Meanwhile, Judge Eleanor Stone faced her own introspection. In interviews, she publicly admitted to underestimating Ethan, using the experience as a personal wake-up call. "That young man reminded me of why I entered this profession in the first place," she told a journalist. Justice should never depend on assumptions. The case that began as a simple traffic dispute sparked a larger conversation about bias, perseverance, and the power of challenging expectations. But even as the world debated his story, Ethan quietly prepared for what was next. Because for him, this was just the first step toward something much greater. Ethan's story didn't just fade into the background like another viral moment. It lingered in conversations, classrooms, and courtrooms across the country. People debated not just his legal brilliance but also the deeper issues his case raised, how society often judges individuals based on their appearance, age, or circumstances before giving them a chance to prove themselves. For Ethan, the courtroom victory wasn't just about his own vindication. It was about showing that talent, intelligence, and determination could come from anywhere. "If we only focus on what we think someone can't do," Ethan said in an interview, "we'll never see what they're truly capable of." Judge Stone's transformation became another crucial lesson. In subsequent cases, she showed a marked attentiveness, pausing to truly listen rather than relying on initial impressions. In an interview, she reflected, "That day in court taught me more than years on the bench could have." Ethan Brooks showed me the power of humility, preparation, and resilience, and he reminded me to look beyond the surface. For the viewers and readers of Ethan's story, the moral was simple yet profound: assumptions are easy, but justice requires effort. By judging less and listening more, we create space for others to thrive and for their unique talents to emerge. Ethan became a symbol of perseverance not just for aspiring young lawyers but for anyone who had ever been underestimated. Schools invited him to speak, law firms extended invitations, and young people across the country saw him as proof that excellence could come from the most unexpected places. But Ethan didn't let the fame distract him. He remained focused on his future, determined to use his growing platform to inspire others to challenge the barriers placed in their paths. Months after the courtroom drama, Ethan Brooks continued to carve his path, undeterred by the attention or scrutiny. He saw his newfound platform as a responsibility, using it to mentor young people, advocate for fair treatment, and remind others that success was about perseverance and preparation, not just opportunity. In a heartfelt speech at a community event, Ethan summarized his journey: "I didn't walk into that courtroom to prove someone wrong. I walked in to prove myself right." The truth is, we all have moments when people doubt us. But those moments aren't walls, they're doors waiting to be opened. The audience erupted in applause, but Ethan remained humble. For him, the journey was far from over. He planned to continue his education, fight for justice, and help others realize their potential. His story became a beacon of hope, a reminder that talent can transcend bias and that no one's worth should be judged by appearances. For those who watched or listened to Ethan's story, it was a call to action: take a moment to challenge your assumptions about others. The next time you see someone and think you know their story, ask yourself what you might be missing. Ethan's journey wasn't about a courtroom victory. It was about resilience, believing in yourself, and the power of challenging expectations. And with each step forward, he carried the hope that his story would inspire others to take theirs. What do you think of Ethan's journey? If you've ever been underestimated or had to fight to prove your worth, share your story in the comments. Your words can inspire many to keep striving and pursuing justice. If this story moved you, please share it with friends and family to spread the message of perseverance, fairness, and overcoming prejudice. Thank you for watching and supporting. Keep challenging barriers and believing in yourself, because sometimes, one small step can change a big story. Wishing you strength and success on your journey. Thank you for supporting the channel. Please like, share, and subscribe for the latest updates. The stories are collected from various sources and do not represent any individual or organization. They are shared for the purpose of spreading humanistic values in life and have been rewritten with AI assistance. If there are any errors, please overlook them with understanding. Wishing you all the best in life.